Alright all, this is John, and I am taking you through my lab that I built here at my house. And it's pretty straightforward. I have a traditional Cisco access architecture. I have a 2801 router, an ISR IAD that has a Cisco PBX on it. And it also has 2 gigabit Ethernet ports on the back and a Cisco Voice T1 WIC card, which I bought for a very low price. A modern version of these is a 2900 series, and bought new. They're in the $3,000 to $4,000 range in the current K9 configuration, which is what I have here. This router does come with the advanced crypto package, so you can terminate IPsec tunnels to it. And as you can see, I pre-wired out the console cable to my Mac server here, which I will take you through in just a minute. Along with my router, I do have an older Cisco Layer 2 switch. It doesn't have any Layer 3 functionality. But it is a PoE 24 port switch. Has 2 GigE uplinks that can be either twisted pair or fiber interfaces. And I recently bought a Brocade fiber channel switch on top of that I don't have hooked up quite yet because I don't have drives for it. But I do have the controller cards, and I can get that hooked up to my Mac pretty soon. The advantage of the Brocade is essentially it allows me to do 4 gig fiber channel connections to third-party SAN, and we can get very high disk throughputs in the 16 gig range on a modern controller. So that is roughly 500 times as fast as my Mac i7, which does 32 gigs per second bus throughput. So when you go to fiber channel, essentially you get between a 100 and 500 time performance improvement on disk writes, and that becomes relevant when you start to do virtualizations of specific virtual machines, and you're using dynamic sized templates, which if you haven't done this before, it's sort of a hard concept. On top of that, I bought a Blu-ray player at the thrift shop for 20 bucks, and this is a Samsung model that also allows for streaming across the internet. So this box I got lucky with, but new is in the $1,000 range, so it's on the premium side. Up at the top, I have an Asus screen. It supports 1920 pixels of resolution, and it's about 1400 deep. So it's an excellent monitor, and when configured with Windows, it does do plug and play for Windows 7, so it's a pretty fancy system. Down at the bottom, I have a Mac Pro server. It's got 8 cores on it. It's running Mac OS Sahara, Mojave, and I have a number of virtual machines on it. And then I have 2 phones right now. I have a Cisco 7962, which is what I used at Bank of America, and I have a Polycom SIP phone. So both of these are SIP related services. I can configure them here locally to my Cisco call manager that I have on my platform, which I haven't turned up yet, or I can provision them to the cloud to my resources at Google and Amazon. So I am still muddling around with my voice environment, but that is on the to-do list. So that's a generic overview of my lab. As you can see up here, I do have a Mac screensaver going on, and behind the scenes, if I open this up, first thing you'll notice is I'm running a Belkin router to the ISP, and I'm not using Cisco technology, but this Belkin router is all web driven, and essentially I can provision all of my firewall interfaces and all my services on the Belkin, including a DMZ, and that gives me essentially the functionality that Google Cloud has. So I don't quite have APIs built to Belkin, but I think there's hope that I can emulate a lot of what Google Cloud and Amazon are doing on the network in the tool that I have. So as you can see, it does support DHCP. It's got a wireless access point, and I essentially built a guest internet connection on the outside. Going to the rest of this machine, I do have Microsoft Office on my Mac here. So I'm running a traditional Microsoft stack, and I'm using an Oracle hypervisor, and what it does is essentially it runs as an application on my Mac OS, which is a Unix platform, and essentially Oracle provides the virtualization technology for what I'm running on my server. So this is amazing stuff. It's equivalent to Hyper-V on a Microsoft platform, and what Google Cloud uses is KVM, which is similar to this. So this particular hypervisor, since I have sort of a small host here with just eight cores, I can only create so many virtual machines. But if I put this on a Mac Pro server that has 100 cores, which is what the new ones do, essentially this would look like a sort of a premise-based host. So not as big as Google's, but certainly large enough to run a Bank of America site. So you can see there on the left I have a hypervisor. On the right you'll see something interesting, and essentially what the Mac Sahara does is when there are Windows hosts, either in virtual form or in real form, I have several Windows PCs, they will show up on the network icon in blue here. You'll also see that Mac hosts actually show up as well. So the nice thing about running Mac OS at the host layer is I can see all of my Mac and Unix, or Mac and Windows guests in a single interface, and I don't have to run remote control software by Avante or other people. So essentially this is a really unique environment, and by simply running Mac OS I get free remote control to all my devices, and I also get an immediate local area network. So very fancy system. What I have provisioned here on this server, as you can see, I do have Microsoft Remote Desktop, so I can get to any of my resources via RDP. And right now I just have 4 virtual machines. I have one Windows server for geolocation info. This is a domain controller, and it is running Windows Server 2012 R2. It doesn't have a SQL server, so it's simply just file and print and a domain server. So that is running. I also have 2 versions of Novell, believe it or not, Novell 5, and so I have a NDS tree that I built on top of my platform here. So I have 2 servers that I provisioned and I'm in process of bringing online. And then lastly, I have an Ubuntu server running Microsoft SQL Server, and that is recently been released by Microsoft, and I'm running Ubuntu 2004, which is the latest code. So so I have everything on here. Again, I'm running Mojave. You can see that by me pulling that up here. And what I'm trying to do is build a peer-to-peer network from here to Raleigh, and from Raleigh to another site in Columbia. So we'll have 3 on-net nodes, plus Google Cloud and Amazon anywhere I want to go. And then I'd like to turn 2 up on the West Coast to my family. So we can build a wide area network without buying wide area network links, but I do have to be able to provision tunnels. So my Cisco platforms will help me later as I'm trying to inject routes that I'm getting from the VPN network into the LAN. So I have a great setup here today. I have a Bluetooth speaker configured to my Mac. They do have very high definition audio systems. I just haven't made the investment in that quite yet. So I'm using a small Bluetooth speaker attached to my server. And that's pretty much my environment on the enterprise side. So I've essentially built an enterprise cloud, and I have what I'm calling CTS cloud. So all of my resources here are on the equivalent of Google Cloud, but just scaled down. So my lab isn't as fancy as their network. To my left here and behind me, I have public internet services, but I'm not going to talk about those today. So I have a private enterprise network that I'm extending peer-to-peer, and then I have a public-facing side that I'll go through at another time. So that's pretty much my lab here. I've spent almost 3 years in development building this, and the reason I chose the Mac is I have full control over automation of my provisioning. All of the Oracle hypervisors have an API layer, and so creating new virtual machines and optimizing existing ones is fairly easy to do. So I chose Mac OS for the management tools, and I can also do things like snapshots of all my resources. I can copy files across the WAN. So it is a very, very fancy platform, and I think I'm moving beyond Google and their capabilities today. My switch is web manageable, as is my router, so all of my network resources I can manage via a GUI, and that's a significant upgrade from both Google Cloud and Amazon. So I'm moving in the right direction. I think my platform's capable of supporting Bank of America, and this particular package is what I would call Teleworker Pro. It's a little more advanced than what I rolled out at Bank of America. In that I've added a host to it, and before at Bank of America I just had sort of laptop connectivity and the same similar router topology. But at Bank of America we use a Cisco 2911 with a wireless connection, which was a kit they built specially for us. So it was essentially just this box with wireless ears on it. And it had PoE ports in it. So I had a single device at Bank of America. These two devices essentially provide the same feature set. It's just I'm sort of landlocked on the lower platform in old Cisco 12.2 code, whereas my router is fairly new, and it's running Cisco 15.1 iOS, the advanced load. So you can see I have a flash drive here that carries my firmware. I also have two USB B ports on my router, which do two things. One, I can upgrade code via USB, and I can also use them as charging stations for my mobile devices, so sort of dual purpose. But this entire package bought on eBay costs about $250 for the server. The phones are about $25 each now, and the router and switch combinations are in the $150 range. My Brocade controller was $50, and my monitor was about $100. So I've got about $750 in third-party spending to replicate this. So to build this environment at another site's about $750. If I bought all of this new, a new Mac Pro server's about $16,000. A new router's about $5,000 with the same features, and a new Brocade controller's another $1,000. So this kit is about a $20,000 executive package, which is going for roughly 5% on the gray market today. So that's an overview of my lab. I'm not going through any of my management software that I've been building, but that's essentially what I'm doing. I built a similar design in Cary, North Carolina, and I'm in process of setting that up now. I've shipped routers and a server that's identical to this, with the same amount of core and same amount of memory. So essentially, I'm going to have another Windows server and 2 more Novell servers in Raleigh. So I have my 2 capitals up. My business is called Capital Technology, which is what I plan to build our hosting capabilities on. And then Greenville Associates is my software company. So as I build software to manage that, I intend to build shrink wrap services from Greenville Associates that manage this environment, and that will allow me to go to sell to the Chases and the Bank of Americas, who have a lot of investment already made in hosting technology. I have bought recently an HP ProLiant environment that I don't have turned up yet, but essentially it can run the same software, and a number of people on the internet are claiming that I can actually get it running Mac OS, which would be a big bonus, but I don't have that turned up yet. So I guess that's about it. I've given you about a 16-minute video, and to my family who thought I was a little wacky, that's pretty much what I've got. I do have a Dish environment here, and I have an Alexa Echo Dot. So you can see that. Alexa, play heavy metal.
Okay. The station, Hard Rock and Metal, free on Amazon Music.
So essentially, I now have an AI-based radio and a really cool enterprise network. And it's not very glamorous here. I don't have a paint job yet, but it's pretty fancy as far as technology goes. And this is certainly good enough to power any branch at any bank, or any restaurants. So I have a pretty generic kit that I can extend out. I'm just trying to manage it a little better. Alexa, stop. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your patience. I'm sorry for the low-tech tour, but we'll get a little better with time. Thank you.